Hi and welcome to Geography Geeks with Mr. Mercer. In this video we'll deal with population growth. We'll deal with it through a graph question. Your exam will contain a graph question, and so it's vitally important that you know how to analyze graphs. Okay, so let's look at the question. This question asks you to describe in detail the graphs. It also asks you to describe in detail the differences in the population trends between the two graphs. Dealing with these in reverse order. Trends, if you're unsure, just means patterns. So we are describing patterns. Clearly, we need to spot the differences between the two patterns, and we need to do that in detail. So, first of all, there's a very structured way of doing this. We are going to make one simple description of the Mumbai graph, and then we are going to make a simple description of the Glasgow graph. In order to persuade the examiner that we are spotting differences between the two graphs, we need to use some comparative language. As you can see on the right hand side of your screen, I would make use of the word whereas to indicate that the first sentence on Mumbai is being compared to the second sentence on Glasgow. How do we do these descriptions then? Well, first of all, I would spot a trend, a peak, or an outlier. Now, in the instance of the Mumbai graph, it is clear that the population in millions is rising from 1981 to 2018. So it is a rising pattern. Whereas in Glasgow, it's clear that it is falling. And if you're more confident with graphs, you might be able to say that it's falling more gently, or that it is falling, and around about 2011 it stabilizes and begins to rise again. This kind of commentary would be referred to as spotting a trend. You're talking about the overall pattern. A peak is a maximum point. Here in 2018, and in Glasgow here in 1981. An outlier is an unusual point, or a fluctuation, or a anomaly in the graph. Now in Mumbai, you might argue that this is an outlier, or an anomaly, an unusual point. For in 2001, there is clearly a spike in the population growth in Mumbai, where it rises more rapidly than elsewhere. In Glasgow, you would argue perhaps that this point here is your outlier, because it's at this point that the graph begins to stabilize and the number of population in millions in Glasgow begins to rise again. So how would we put this into sentences? Use the structure what, when, and how much. Let's deal with Mumbai. What am I describing? Well, I'm describing the trend of population. So I would say Mumbai's population is rising. When is it rising? I would say Mumbai's population is rising from 1981 to 2018. And by how much is it rising? Mumbai's population is rising from 1981 to 2018 from 8.4 million to 13.5 million people. Now that is how to do a proper, detailed, accurate description. In the example I'm about to show you, I've written it to show the comparison between Mumbai and Glasgow. For example, Mumbai has a rising trend of population between 1981 and 2018. Whereas, and that word is very important because without that word we are not comparing the two graphs. So whereas Glasgow has a falling trend from 0.73 to 0.5 millions. I have combined here my observation of a trend with the dates from and to which that trend takes place, and the values with which that happens. So this is a combined approach. In summary, your exam will contain graph questions. You are very likely to have to describe the graph in detail. Make sure that you are clear about what you're describing, when you are describing it, and by how much you are describing it by. If the question asks you to spot differences or make comparisons, please make sure that you are giving one good description and then connecting it to the next description with a whereas. For 3 marks, you would need to make 3 good comparisons. Okay, I hope this has helped. If you have any further difficulties, come and find me in class or revision classes.